Hello everyone, welcome to PowerAutomate tutorial with Level Up Tech. In our previous session, we have discussed about the concept of conditional statement, in which we have seen if concept and then switch case, right? In our today's session, we are going to discuss about loops. Okay, first of all, we have to understand what is mean by loop, right? As many of you guys are aware of what is loop. So just to reiterate, like doing the repetitive action, right? That is called as loop. When I say repetitive action, let's take on real time example. Let's say a athlete is running a 1500-meter race, 1500-meter race. Okay. So here the action is nothing but running, right? So he will be running each and he will be crossing every 100 meter and finally he will be reaching 1500 meter, right? So here this is the action, whatever he is doing, that is getting repeated, right? So we can call this as a loop. So here we will be having a starting point and then we will be having a ending point also, like a circle. Okay. So this one we can call it as a loop. Okay. In Power Automate, we have different looping concepts. Okay. So as a programming developers, you might aware of for loop, while loop, right? So similarly, the same thing is being applied over here as well. Okay. One is loop action, loop condition action, next loop action, exit loop action, and for each action. Okay. So here we have these many things. So now we have to understand when to use what. Okay. This loop action we have to use whenever, like, number of times, right? Let's say the athlete has to run only 5 rounds. Here the number of rounds or number of iterations, right? Then at the time you can go with this loop action. Okay. So loop condition is more of like a while loop. Okay. So the the best example for while loop we can say it is like if a passenger is entering into an airport. First of all, his boarding pass will be verified, right? So as long as the condition is true, then he will be permitted into the airport, right? So similarly, while loop also works in the very similar manner. For while loop we can say it as a entry control loop. Okay, why we are calling it as an entry control loop? Before entering into the body, in our scenario it is a airport. Before entering into the airport itself, the boarding pass will be checked. So here I have assigned the value 1 to the variable I. Okay, so this I is having the value 1. So what is happening here? Here it is checking the condition first. So that's what we have seen, right? In the airport they will do, they will be first of all validating the boarding pass. Similarly, here also that particular condition is first getting validated. So if the condition is true, initially 1 less than 10, right? So the condition is true. So here we are displaying the I. What we have it in I, we have the value 1. So initially 1 will be displayed. And here we have something I plus plus. What is happening over here at the runtime? Basically, I equals to I plus 1 is nothing but I plus plus. Okay. So what will happen? Initially, we have the value for I is 1. So at this particular point of time, it will become as 1 plus 1 and that will be 2. Now we will be having the value 2 will be stored in this variable I. Now this value 1 will be overwritten by this value. Now this particular I will have this 2 and here it will be checking 2 less than 10 or not. So again the condition is true. Now it will display the value 2 and here we have the value as 2, right? So now 2 plus 1. I is 2 then plus 1, that will become as 3. Now this value will be overwritten by the value 3. So similarly, it will run until the condition is false. When the condition will become false, as soon as the value of I becomes as 10, now it will be validating 10 less than 10 or not. So the condition is false. 10 equals to 10. It is not 10 less than 10, right? So here the condition will false and it will come outside of the loop. Okay, so this is loop condition. It is more of like a while loop. And the next loop is nothing but a continue. Okay. When I say continue, what will happen, right? If condition is true, then it will skip that particular iteration. Okay, so for an example here, we are checking this. Additionally, we will be going to have one more if activity, and we are going to check if I equals to 2 or not. If I equals to 2, then what we are going to do is we want to skip that particular iteration alone. Okay, we don't want to print the value 2 directly. It should jump into the value 3. How we can do that? Using next loop only we can do it. Okay, and we have exit loop. It will work more of like a break action. Okay, what is break? So here we have seen continue. Basically it is going to skip that particular iteration only, right? So in exit loop, what will happen? As soon as the condition is true, if I becomes the value as 2, right, then it will come outside of the loop. Basically it will break the loop itself. Nothing will be getting displayed. Okay, and as soon as the condition is true, right, or the condition is met, it will break the loop, entire loop. So whatever you have outside of the loop, that will get executed. Okay, that is exit loop. And for each, see, in for each we it is used to iterate many things, especially like list, arrays, data tables, and all. Okay, and many more things we have. So here we have a sample list. Okay, in this list we are storing certain values like apple, banana, cherry, and here we are doing for x in fruits. This x is nothing but a temporary variable, and this fruits is this variable. So what will happen? Initially, in this list, it will pick this particular value alone. So that particular value will be getting stored in this temporary variable x. So x equals to apple, and we are printing that particular value here. And in the next iteration, it will pick this value, and that value will be displayed. And next time it will print picks this value, and that will be printed. So basically, how many times the loop is going to execute it? How many values you are having inside in your list or array or in your data table, that many times only this for each will be getting executed. Okay, so let's quickly demonstrate whatever concepts that we have discussed in a theoretical way, right? Let's quickly demonstrate with the help of Power Automate desktop. Okay, I have already written the code, just I will show you. So you might wonder, what is this region and end region, right? This is like a step. Okay, so whatever things that we want to put it inside in it, just if we expand it, we would be able to see all the actions inside in it. Basically it is used for better visibility. Okay, so if we expand everything like this, then you might face difficulty in understanding the code, right? So for better coding understanding only, we are using this region and end region. Okay, so first we will start with the loop concept. Okay, so which means it is how many times the iterations, you know already, that many iterations only your loop want you want to execute your loop. Okay, so all these actions will be available under loop. See, we have loop, for each, exit loop, loop condition, next loop. In this we are going to discuss this loop concept first. Okay, here, when I take this loop action, see, iterates a block of actions for a specified number of times. Whatever number of iterations that you want to give, that many times only this will get executed. And it is asking from which number you want me to start. So I have given the value as 1. And till which number? So basically I want to run my loop 5 times. So I have given starting with 1 and ending with 5, and increment by. So this increment by is nothing but I equals to I plus 1. So initially it will be 1, and now the value will be become as 2. Okay. So here we are telling, see, run 5 times, but when it will run 5 times, if you are incrementing by the value 1, that time only it will run 5 times. Suppose if you give 2, what will happen? First time it will print the value as 1, and second time it will print the value as 3, and third time it will print the value as 5. So totally only 3 times this will get executed. Okay, So only these parameters we are going to provide over here. And for now, just ignore this. I will disable this particular action. And here we have something called as display message, right? See what we are doing. We are just asking Power Automate to run 5 times, and as long as like it will run for 5 times, right? So here what we are doing, we are printing that particular result. When it is going to run for first time, the value 1 will be printed, and when it is going to run second time, 2, and similarly 3, 4, 5, it will be printed. Now what I have did is, let me enable these two actions. Here just I wanted to show you how this next loop also works. Okay, so basically this next loop and exit loop is you can use or you can consume one side only inside the looping concepts. Okay, something outside of this particular looping concept. Okay, so for going after this loop condition, we are using if activity, if action. Last in our previous session, we have discussed this, right? So we are checking whether this loop index equals to 2 or not. If it is equals to 2, then what we are asking UiPath to do is, if it is 2, then you can skip that particular iteration. Just move ahead with the next iteration and print the result. That's what we are asking. So what the result will be printed? It will be coming as 1. It will not print the result 2 directly. It will jump into 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's what it will happen over here. Let me just run this from here, and as you can see on the right hand side, initially the loop index is 1, but now 2 is not printed directly. It is jumping into 3, 4, and finally it will print the result as 5, right? So this is what it will happen in the loop action. Okay, the next one is loop condition. So what is loop condition? It is more of like a while loop, right? So here I'm assigning a value to a variable, that is just like I equals to 1, right? So here we are setting the value as I equals to 10, right? So similarly, let's consider this value is 1. So we are setting the value as 1, right? Similarly, here also I'm doing the same thing. I'm having a variable called count. For that variable, I'm giving the value as 1. And the next thing what I'm checking, if the count is 2, right? Then I want to break this entire loop. Okay, it should come outside of the loop itself. It should break the entire loop itself. So for that, I'm using exit loop. That is more of like a break action, right? If it is not true, if the condition is not true, initially the value of count is 1, right? So it will be not true. So directly it will be executing this. It will print the result as 1, and what value we have here, we are incrementing it. Why we are incrementing it? If we are not incrementing, then this particular things will go in as a infinite loop. It will work as a infinite loop because all the time the value of count will be 1 only. It is not going to increment on its own, like loop. Okay, this loop condition, for in order to increment any value inside loop condition, then we have to use a set variable and we have to increment it manually. Okay, so now when I run my this particular piece of code, what will happen? Initially it will print the result as 1, and in the next time the condition, like in the count, it the value of count will become as 2. So here it will check 2 equals to 2, the condition is true, and it will execute this particular piece of code, exit loop. So what will happen? Once it reaches this particular action, it will come outside of this entire loop. It will break the entire loop itself. Okay, so just to demonstrate, right, let me run it from here. See, we are getting the value as 1 initially, and immediately it is getting breaked, right? So this is how this loop condition will work. Okay, so now we have covered 4 actions, right? One is next loop, loop condition, loop, and exit loop. The one which is pending is for each. For to demonstrate for each, I have created a list called fruit list. Okay, so I have created the list, and inside this list I'm storing certain values using add item to list action: apple, orange, grapes, and cherry. I'm storing all these values inside this fruit list. So what will happen here? I'm iterating that fruit list. It is like for X in fruit list, just like we have discussed with Notepad, right? So what will happen? Initially, it will pick the value apple, right? So similarly, initially it will pick the value apple, and that apple will be getting stored in this current fruit. And finally, what we are doing? We are printing that result over here, current fruit. Okay, and similarly next time it will pick the value orange, and third time it will pick the value grapes, and fourth time it will pick the value cherry, and fifth time we don't have any item added to the list, only we have four values. Only four times this particular piece of code will be getting executed. Okay, let me run it now. See, initially we have the value apple that is getting executed, and next we have orange in the current fruit temporary variable, and third time grapes, and finally we have the value cherry, right? So this is the next set of actions are getting executed. We can ignore this we have already seen, right? So now I hope the looping concept is very much clear for you guys. Thank you for watching this video. Have a great day ahead, and happy automation.